Welcome back. I've got everything nice and dry and cool to the touch. So we're going to go ahead and continue. And again, this is the grapes that we are, beautiful yellow grapes that we are painting. I have again chosen more of a darker yellow than the dark, this one's almost got a green gray cast to it. So this is how far we are. And what I'm going to do then is just take a look at our resource material and decide, this was our center of interest. This is the closest grape to it, and it's fairly similar in value, except for this edge is darker. These two are darker. We could darken this one, do that one, and then, yeah, this is a fairly dark, and this is a fairly dark. It's not as dark as these, but it's like the next value up. So I think that's what we're going to do, is these two back ones, and that's going to make this one pop forward more, which will be real lovely. Okay. So I'm going to grab my water brush, which I did find. It had fallen down the edge of my table. Grab my cloth, my baby cloth. This is good because these aren't going to be touching each other, so we can do both. I think we'll start on this one first. Keep my hand out of it better. I'm looking at the side of my paper to make sure that I've got a nice coat of water on there. Looks like I do. There we go. Looking for my number 4. Yep, I found it. Wake it up a little bit. And we're going to go with the light value first. I'm going to put that all over the entire grape, just like we did the water. Seemed to be a little moist to me, so all I did was pat my brush on my baby cloth that's on my lap. Let's pick up some of that moisture. And as I look at the side, it did the trick for me, so that's a good thing. Now let's look at that grape again. Just want to make sure you can see. This one's fairly dark all the way around the outside edge. It's lighter where the highlight is and below that, but around the outside edge it's pretty dark. So I'm actually going to the mid-value shadow at this point. Now I don't want to take this right to the edge on this grape at all. It's just on the inside edge that it's fairly dark. And this is the exact same way that you would paint petals on a rose or whatever. Just look at your reference material and where are your values. I'm going to just let that dry, and then we'll see if we need to put any more darker values in there or not. So we're going to move on to our next grape, which is this one. Add in our water first. And again, I'm only doing one coat because these areas are so small. Just remove some of that water. It's a big brush for these little areas, but that's okay. You can still control your water. If you do happen to have a puddle in your corner, just pick it up. Use your brush as a sponge. It has to be drier than the surface. There we go. Now I'm going to drop down to a number 2 because this is such a small area here. Picking up my lightest value first. This you do want to get right to the outside edge. I'm going to go right to the mid-value shadow again. Start right down in here. Seems like there's a lot of moisture right in that corner, so I'm just going to pick some of that up, making sure my brush is drier than the paper at that point. So it'll pick some of that up, and it did. Now we can go ahead and apply some more color, and it'll hold better. Otherwise, the paper is so moist, it just won't hold the value that you want it to. Now this one doesn't even have a highlight. It's so far in the background. There we go. These are going to be really lovely when they're done. Be a pretty little design. I'm going to clean my brush, dry most of it off onto my baby cloth. I don't want this to go right to the outside edge. Just move some of my things around here, get them out of my way. So I'm not going to soften that edge away, but I do want to soften this edge in the center away. And all I'm doing is pulling that paint, applying more if I need to, into that center section. Just like that. So we're going to let that one dry too. Let's go ahead and do the same thing to this one. Get my brush out. Pick up my water brush. And I'm going to turn my board because I don't want to get my hand in those two that we just painted. Make sure you can see me, and you can, so we're good there. Checking the side of my paper to make sure it's completely covered. It's not a big one, but still want water on the entire grape. There we go. Stay with my number 2 brush. Pick up the lightest value first. A lot of moisture on that brush, so I just wiped it off. And I can move around the paint. Now there is a light right there where we have the masking, so we can go right over that if we want to. Okay, and we're going to go right back to the mid-value shadow. And this outside edge is pretty much covered in the shadow. Wipe off my ferrule because it's got a drip on it. You always want to make sure you don't have any drips on your brush, because what can happen is gravity is going to make that drop that's on there hit your paper. And then once that happens, unfortunately, you've got a bloom and you're not able to control it anymore. So you just want to keep an eye on that to make sure. And that's pretty much the way that one is. The highlight will bring up that light there. So we're going to leave that like that and let that dry along with those other 3. Now let's go ahead and we'll do this one first. Make sure you get enough water on there. I start in the center and then pull it to the outside edge. All the way around. And I can see just by tilting my head off to the side that I missed these corners, so we're going to go back and get those. And the bottom here. That looks a lot better. Just want to make sure you've got all your water on that grape. Now it looks like I might have gone into this grape a little bit with my water. So I'm going to just pick that up. Sometimes with my bright light shining right in my eyes, it's a little difficult to see. Here we go. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Looks like there's a little bit of moisture of a puddle starting down here. So I'm going to just move that up. There we go. All right, I'm going to go back up to my number 4. Pick up my lightest value first. I'm going to put that all over the entire grape. Oops, it went into the other grape, but not going to be that big a deal, but we really don't want to do that at this point. We can help it. I got too much moisture on my brush, and I'm just moving that puddle around, and I don't want to do that. Still seems like I'm doing that, so I'm going to pick up that puddle. There we go. That's better. turn this so I can get at this bottom edge a little bit better. Alright, now on our resource, get some dark area down here, which would make sense because that grape is sitting down. Got some dark area up in here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with this mid-value shadow. Very pretty. These colors are very, very pretty. And this one starts up about here, comes down. Okay, now we're going to want to go darker. Looking at my reference to make sure I'm putting it in the right area. Could even be a little darker than that. That's better. Of course, we want to go right up to the edge of the other grape. Now, as we put in our darker value, you don't ever want to cover the entire first shadow that we laid down, because you want to be able to see all the values. The more values you have, the more realistic and the better form you have. So keep that in mind as you're adding shadows, and even detail sometimes can take away those values, and don't want that. Now this one's actually got some lines up in here and a couple down in here. I'm gonna darken those even more. Okay, so I'm going to let that one dry. I think we should be able to go ahead and do this one. Now when I'm loading my water brush to glaze my grapes, I'm just loading right the very tip. I'm not putting the entire brush bristle into my water, because that would be too much water for us to control. And even at that, there's times that I'm wiping my brush off because I got too much water. So always want to control the amount of water that you have, because that's how you're going to control the way your design goes. I'm just wiping off my brush. It just feels like there's way too much water on there in the bottom. That looks better. You can kind of see too when you look at the side if you have too much water on there. There we go, that's better. And again, we're going to go with our lightest value. And don't forget, we did make that grape the top grape, or the center of interest, so it is over this one and it is over the one we're painting. So keep that in mind so you don't cover that up. Once we get all the grapes done and dried, we are going to erase pencil lines. Anytime you paint anything in yellow or a real light value like this, definitely want to get at those pencil lines and erase them as quickly as possible so that they don't get covered in too much paint and you're not able to get them out. Okay, so we're good with the light value. And I'm just looking to see. So we got some dark areas over here, pretty much all around here. So we're going to go right to the mid value. Now this is going to change a little bit because we're going to have corners here that the resource material would not have had because of me changing this grape being on top. Okay, cleaning out my brush, and I'm going to go to our darker value now. There's definitely a darker area up in here. This corner is going to have a darker value to it. And I do want to go to the center. I don't want to outline this other grape, but I do want to create a darker value in the center of where those is going over. And we got some darker areas over here that we can just drop in while this is still wet. Okay. We can go ahead and do this one then. I'm just checking it to make sure that the ones around it are dry, and it does appear to be. So I'm going to grab my water brush. Now, if you're running out of paint, be sure and mix it on your palette before you go and put your water on, because by the time you get it mixed and need to add paint, your water could be dry and you'd have to basically reglaze. So before you glaze to begin with, just make sure you have enough paint mixed on your palette. And that seems like I got a lot of paint on there. So I'm just gonna pick some of it up, or a lot of water, I should say. Yep, that looks a lot better. Okay, now I'm on the number 4 still. Just gonna drop that in. Now I did go to a darker value here. And this section is dark and this section is dark. So that's what I'm dropping in over here, is the darker area down here. Now this one does have some real dark values in it, so we're going to go ahead, we're going to reinforce this one. Don't cover up the entire area. Just go to the corners down here, don't cover this entire area. Seems to have some dark right in this area too, so we'll add that in. And again, you don't want to cover up the entire area that you put down first. So we're going to let that one dry. Let's go back and take a look at this one. It's dry enough, so we can go ahead and glaze this one. And I'm just looking at my side of my paper to see where I'm at with water, where I need to go. So here again, this is another one that top one is covering. Okay. Looks like it might be a little bit wet. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit of the water. Water can work, or your brushes can work as a sponge, or they can work as a brush, so take advantage. Picking up our lightest value, yellow. turn that a little bit. We'll turn it all the way around. Just want to make sure you can see me. Okay, let's see. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go to my mid-value dark. And it looks like right in here and a lot right in there. So we'll start up here because that's where it appears to be the darkest. Moving my paint where I want it. And down in here. Now this one you don't want to go right to the edge either because you want to highlight in there as it sits down with that shadow. And that'll make that light show up. Okay, now I'm going to go into the darkest value. It's picking up a little bit of a darker color there. Okay, so this area right in here is darker. This area right in here is darker. And then there is some up in here that's darker. So you don't want to cover in the entire area that you just laid down with the lightest shade. Some of this comes over like this too. So we'll put that in. Okay, I think what we're going to do here too, as long as we have the time, so I'm going to add some water to the gray-green shadowy color that we had mixed. And I'm going to add just a tinge of green to it. This is what we're going to paint here in the center is actually a stem, but it's going to be a darker gray-green. Now I'm not going to add any water to the or glaze this area because it's just too small. Okay, so what I'm talking about is we're going to do this little stem over here, bring it down like that. And it'll be much easier to control because you really don't need to soften this at all. There's no soft edges on it. Now it's hard to tell as I look at the reference material if these little orangey spots are actually something that needs to be put in there. I think I'm going to just ignore them because I think it's a camera flash. that's being picked up right there. This does come all the way up over here. And there is a little bit of a gold area in there we can add in. I think we got enough yellow on our palette to be able to add that in. All right, so I'm going to clean my brush. Now I am going to go with our darkest shade value. There's just a couple of little areas. And that'll be our highlight down that side. And then we'll put in some darks so that those show up. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now I'm just going to do a much darker of that gray green. It's still moist enough that it should spread rather nicely for us. It's on the right hand side and in this corner, of course, and up in here. So good. We've got 3 or 4 different values in there, and that's what we need and want. Just gonna reinforce that area right there. That looks pretty good. Okay, we're going to go ahead, and there's this one more dark area right here, and it looks like it's just a solid color, so we'll start there. Pretty moist for that little tiny area, so. Picking up some of that color, which is good because now I can add in a dark and it'll show. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the darker gray green that we had here. A lot of moisture on there. Okay, so we got a couple different values in there. Now let's go ahead and dry this, and then when we come back we'll go ahead and erase the lines that we want to get rid of. So I'll see you in a minute.